welcome to the deep dive. Today we're looking at something, well, really quite fascinating. It's a document exploring some innovative ideas for supporting an aging population.
That's right. And specifically, it looks at Taiwan and asks if maybe lessons from Israel's unique kibbutz model could be adapted there.
It sounds like an unexpected connection, doesn't it?
It really does. So our mission here is to unpack this. We've got this source material that lays out Taiwan's challenge, explains the kibbutz idea, and even outlines some potential steps.
So we want to understand, okay, why is Taiwan looking for new answers? What exactly is a kibbutz?
And how does it connect to, like, deep psychological needs? Which is really interesting. And how has this model actually survived and, evolved?
And then the practical side, how are people thinking about actually adapting it?
Exactly. It feels like taking this historical collective model and seeing if it offers something for people finding their way in a new life stage, looking for, well, meaning and connection.
Okay, let's explore that. Where do we start? The situation in Taiwan.
Yeah, let's jump right in there. The document makes it clear that's the context. A big demographic shift is underway.
Right, Taiwan's population is aging rapidly.
Very rapidly. It hit aged society status back in 2018. That means over 14% were 65 or older.
And it's not slowing down.
No, quite the opposite. Projections show it becoming a super-aged society by 2025, so very soon.
Wow, that's a huge shift. Longer lives, fewer births, right?
Precisely. A much larger proportion of older adults in the population.
So, okay, what's been the typical response to this so far? What are the policies?
Well, the document says the focus has largely been on the practical essentials, things like, long-term care facilities, medical security, some cash subsidies, care services at home, health programs.
All vital stuff, obviously. You need that foundation.
Absolutely necessary. But here's where the source finds a gap. It argues these policies, while crucial, don't fully meet all the needs.
Okay, what's missing then?
It points specifically to the psychological and social needs, particularly for what it calls the mature generation. I think people aged, say, 55 plus.
Right, people who might be leaving their main careers, maybe entering a transition phase.
Exactly that phase. Retirement, even partial retirement, can mean a lot of disruption. Your role changes, maybe becomes ambiguous, you lose that daily social interaction from work.
And in societies where work is closely tied to identity? That must be tough.
It can be. The document suggests that ending a long career can lead to a real loss of identity, maybe even perceived self-worth, if your value felt tied to your job.
I can see that. You might feel a bit adrift, even if you're healthy.
That's the picture painted. Healthy, active maybe, but struggling to find a clear place for social participation. Society's role for them can feel vague.
Kind of in between, not young, not traditionally old.
Exactly. This transitional state, this ambiguity, can unfortunately fuel feelings of loneliness or self-doubt.
So the systems provide security, basic care.
But maybe not enough opportunity for continued contribution, for feeling valued, for, self-realization in this new chapter.
Which is why the document argues for looking beyond the usual models.
Yes, it calls for innovative options. Which brings us to the perhaps surprising suggestion, looking at the Israeli kibbutz.
Okay, so for anyone not familiar, what's the basic idea of a kibbutz as presented here?
At its core, it's described as a collective community. Shared living, sharing resources, and critically value placed on everyone contributing back. It's framed as a different lifestyle choice, outside typical family or social structures.
And how does that connect to Taiwan's mature generation?
Well, given the demographic pressure and the need for better transition support, the source sees the kibbutz not as a blueprint to copy, but as a model you can observe, learn from, and maybe pilot some ideas.
It really reframes aging, doesn't it? Less about decline, more about a continued phase of life.
Completely. The argument is strong. This mature stage shouldn't just be about working longer for money or passively waiting. It should be active. Finding new meaning, rebuilding connections, maintaining dignity through purpose.
Now, this connection to psychology is fascinating. The source links the kibbutz to Alfred Adler.
Yes, this is a really compelling part. Adler had these 3 core ideas for human happiness and well-being, and the document argues the kibbutz structure, maybe unintentionally, really embodies them.
Okay, let's break that down. What's the first one?
First is task separation. Adler's idea about knowing what's your responsibility versus others. Clear boundaries.
Right, not getting overly tangled in others' issues.
Exactly. And in a kibbutz, the source says, Members have defined roles within the collective, but also maintain significant personal autonomy. They have a voice, but also their own space and choices.
So collective living, but with strong individual boundaries respected.
Precisely. This gives clarity, which can reduce that psychological stress from role ambiguity that we talked about for the mature generation. You know where you fit, but you're still your own person.
That makes a lot of sense. What's the second element from Adler?
Trusting others. This is described as absolutely fundamental. Shared income, shared food, shared tools, it all rests on deep trust.
How does that trust get built?
Through long-term interaction, shared work, collaboration, shared responsibility. The document stresses it's not just logistics, it's about building genuine reliability over time.
And psychologically, that translates to
Emotional connection and a real sense of security. Knowing you're part of this interdependent community built on trust provides safety. You belong.
okay, so clear roles and boundaries, security through trust. What's the third?
The third is perhaps the core value mentioned. Contributing to self, which Adler linked to contribution to others. The idea is everyone contributes value, regardless of age or ability.
How does that look day to day?
It could be farming, industry, services within the kibbutz like teaching or care, management, even creative work. Your specific contribution might change over time, but the principle of contributing something remains.
So everyone has a purpose, a way to give back.
Exactly. And the source argues this confirms your social function, your meaning. And here's the key point. For the mature generation, feeling needed and seen through contribution is often much better for self-identity and happiness than just being cared for.
That's a powerful contrast to passive retirement. Adler's idea of self-realization through helping others seems built into the structure.
It seems so. And the document mentions psychological studies confirm this link between community participation and lower depression, anxiety, higher self-esteem, all things needed during this life transition.
So pulling it together, the kibbutz isn't just history, it's a living model whose principles seem to directly address these deep psychological needs for autonomy, security, purpose, especially relevant for older adults.
It's a really compelling idea to investigate further, for sure.
And they've evolved, right? They aren't just the agricultural communes they started at.
Oh, absolutely. The document dives into that. They started early 20th century, very idealistic, agricultural, based on sharing and autonomy, social experiments, really.
But now
There are about 270 kibbutzim, maybe 100,000 members, and they've diversified hugely. Agriculture is still there, but they're also into high-tech, biotech, manufacturing, tourism, education, you name it.
wow, so they're actually significant economic contributors.
Very much so. The source says they contribute something like 9% of Israel's industrial GDP, over 40% of agricultural output. They're not just surviving, many are innovating.
Any specific examples mentioned?
Yeah, it points to Kibbutz Yisrael and their company Matronics. They make those automatic pool cleaners. A global high-tech company born from a kibbutz shows they can blend collective roots with modern business.
That's impressive. And individuals, too.
Yes, it mentions Dov Moran, inventor of the USB drive who works to link kibbutz spirit with tech, and Dr. Nimrod Israeli, a scholar studying the model. They represent that innovative drive.
And they seem open to sharing this. Like, people can visit and learn.
Apparently so. Many welcome visitors, volunteers, researchers. That openness makes learning from them actually feasible.
So it's their adaptability, their resilience over a century, balancing community and individual needs that makes them relevant today.
Exactly. That stability combined with innovation is why the source sees them as a potent model for supporting the mature generation.
Which leads us to the practical steps. How is this idea actually being explored in Taiwan?
Well, the document credits the Taiwan-Israel Chamber of Commerce with spearheading this.
And their goal is?
To essentially introduce the concept and help foster a Taiwanese community model for the mature generation. One based on participation, sharing, and finding that continued value.
How are they approaching it? Sounds like it needs care.
Very carefully, it's outlined as a 3-step process. Step 1, awareness. Forums, seminars, talks to get the idea out there to the public, policymakers, professionals, educate people on the principles.
Okay, start the conversation then.
Step 2, direct experience. Organizing study trips to Israel, visiting different kibbutzim, seeing how they really work day-to-day finances, daily life, governance, and building relationships.
Who's going on these trips?
It's a mix, according to the source. Tech leaders, NGO reps, academics, and importantly, members of the mature generation themselves. Getting diverse perspectives is key.
Makes sense to include the people it's meant for. And step 3,
Establishing a platform back in Taiwan for dialogue and eventually implementation, knowledge sharing, research links, talking with government and universities about how to adapt the core ideas locally.
So it's definitely not copy-paste.
No, the document is very clear on that. It's gradual, local, experimental. Avoid just importing it wholesale. The aim is for Taiwanese participants to feel it, experience it, and then build their own community culture, rooted in their context.
The goal is bigger than just housing then. It's about changing perceptions.
That seems to be the deeper aim. Shifting the view of aging from being about receiving care to being about active contribution and self-realization, the Kibbutz is the inspiration for that shift.
And long-term, this could lead to
Potentially new kinds of social structures. The document suggests these local co-living solutions could support intergenerational connection, mutual support, shared resources in new ways, adding resilience and diversity to society overall.
Okay, so we've looked at Taiwan's aging challenge, the surprisingly relevant kibbutz model, its psychological depth, its real-world success, and these careful steps being taken to adapt the inspiration.
Yeah, and it's clear the idea is about much more than just a place to live. It's really rethinking aging as a time for continued growth, purpose, and community connection.
It really makes you think, doesn't it? As societies everywhere face similar challenges, what other models might be out there? Maybe hidden in different cultures or different historical periods, or even just informal ways people already connect. What could offer inspiration for living well and contributing, right to our lives? What does a truly fulfilling community look like for you, whatever your age?